Is Inithwe Bloodtwin as bad as people say? Nah. What is going on, Raiders? Soda Dragon here, and today we are doing a champion spotlight on a champ I really like, but might be one of the most underutilized and underrated legendaries, if not in the Demon Spawn, in the whole game. His name is Inithwe Bloodtwin. Contrast Inithwe with his brother Drexthar. So since the advent of the Doom Tower especially, Drexthar has gotten a lot of attention and a lot of play, and this is all for good reason. He is an absolute stud in the Doom Tower. But what about poor Inithwe? He is regularly on tier lists of the worst legendaries in the game. Guys, I don't think he's that bad. In fact, I actually like him. Now, could he use a buff? Sure. I mean, since I have him, I wouldn't mind if he got a buff. But does he absolutely need it for his utility and usefulness in the game? I would actually say no. Do I want him to get a buff? Of course. Does he need a buff? I would say no. Right now, as he is, he could be really useful to your account. Looking at Inithwe's kit, it seems like he would really excel in the arena. And I do think that is where some people are disappointed. But I'm here to tell you, if you know how to use him, if you know the strategies on how to use him, especially on offense, he can be really useful to you in the arena. I will definitely show you some arena fights later, so you will see Inithwe in action. But first, I did get a Sacred Shard on Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, and it is 2x right now, so let's see what we get. Alright, Clawed Beast Feeder. Beast Feeder. Alright guys, back to the star of the show, Inithwe Bloodtwin, and let's start with the skills. But first off, I just want to let you guys know my Inithwe is completely unbooked. So when you see his damage numbers in the arena, they will be significantly increased if you book him. Alright, so the way I'm running him, unbooked. Let's start with Inithwe's A1 Vitality Censure. Attacks one enemy. Decreases the target's max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted. Damage based on attack. Now, I am not a big fan of decreased enemy max HP skills, but the damage multipliers are pretty good on this A1, and when you combine it with Inithwe's passive, which we'll talk about in a second, that makes this a pretty good A1. On to Inithwe's A2, No Mercy. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Damage increases equal to the percentage of HP the target has lost. Damage based on attack. This is on a 3-turn cooldown. So notice that 3-turn cooldown cannot be decreased. All you're going to get is an increase in damage when you book out your Inithwe. And also notice with the A2 and also the A1, you are getting 30% more damage when you book him out. That is really significant. So all the damage you see me do with the A1 and the A2, think about it. You could get 30% more damage. Now I realize that legendary books, they are hard to come by. So if you're a free-to-play player or low spender, it might be worthwhile to hang on to your books for more of those support type characters that can really help you make progress through the game. It's really not worth it for Inithwe if you're a free-to-play character to book him out. He's not going to help you on enough content in this game. But what he does, and what I'm going to show you, he does really well. So if you got those extra books lying around, and if you think Inithwe can help you, and the way I'm going to show, yes, it is worth it to use your books on him. On to Inithwe's A3, Tormenting Whispers. Attacks all enemies. Has an 80% chance, bookable to 100, of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns. damage based on attack. So starting with a 4-turn cooldown, you can book this to a 3-turn cooldown. So unfortunately, notice you can only increase this skill's damage by 10% with books. Now this is Inithwe's AoE skill. That's why it's so unfortunate that it doesn't get the damage upgrade that the other two skills get, 30%. Here we can only get 10%. And if you want that cooldown, you have to use your books on just increasing the leech chance. So this A3, as far as book value, I would say is really poor. Onto Inithwe's passive, the thing that really makes him unique. Final Doom. Heals this champion by 30% of their max HP each time they kill an enemy. Enemies killed by this champion cannot be revived. So guys, I'm going to contrast the wording really quick of Inithwe's passive with someone like Foley. Now Foley, as all you guys know if you faced him in the arena, he has the block revive AoE. And here's how it reads. So his A3 Sealed Fate attacks all enemies, decreases the turn meter by 15%, then attacks the targeted enemy. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. Once again, enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. Contrast this with Inithwe. What does it say? Enemies killed by this champion cannot be revived. Not by this skill, by this champion. That sounds completely badass to me. So that is the really cool thing about Inithwe. No matter what skill he uses, if he kills somebody, that person cannot be revived. So quickly, let me discuss Inithwe's damage multipliers. Now, I don't think they're bad, but that is going to be the main criticism a lot of people have with Inithwe. So just take, for example, Inithwe versus Foley. We looked at Foley's A3, which is essentially the same thing as Inithwe's A3, right? It's an AoE attack that blocks revive. Now, Foley's damage multipliers are significantly, or at least noticeably, higher than Inithwe's. So for some people, they don't like that because Inithwe is a void legendary. And void legendaries, as we all know, are so much harder to get. Foley was a fusion, right? Albeit a hard fusion, but he was a fusion. So why would a void legendary not hit as hard as a non-void legendary that was a fusion for essentially that same move, that AoE block revive? So my answer to this is that it would probably be unfair to pump up Inithwe's damage numbers too much. Here's why. When Foley uses his A3, right, that block revive skill, if it doesn't kill anybody, it's on a long cooldown. And what else does he have? He has his A1, he has his A2 that do not block revive, right? What about Inithwe? He uses his A3, sure it's not as strong, but you have the A2 and the A1, both of which are still block revive threats. Every attack from Inithwe is a block revive threat against the enemy team. That's why if you really want to pump up his damage, or you wish Plarium would do that, just think about it for a second. Think about how OP that would be to have a guy with ridiculous damage multipliers, plus on every single attack, he's blocking people's revive. It will probably be too strong. Now, of course, I say this, having Inithwe, yeah, I want him buffed because I have him, but if I were to think objectively, it would probably be unfair to have a champ that blocks revive on all of his skills, and then just to bump up his damage numbers significantly. The thing is, Inithwe hits decently hard, okay? And he is always a block revive threat, no matter what. Even his A1, block revive threat, okay? So I don't think it would really be fair to pump up his damage numbers too much or just to buff him too much. So that's my take on Inithwe's damage multipliers and people's criticisms of Inithwe. Alright, on to Inithwe's aura. Increases ally attack in all battles by 33%. So good standard attack aura, you probably won't be using it that much. So how have I geared my Inithwe? You see, I have him in a Savage set, so Savage 4-piece set ignores 25% of defense, and a Cruel set, so attack plus 15% and ignores 5% of enemy defense. Now these two are going to be probably your strongest combination for your damage dealers that are based on attack. On to the bottom 3 pieces of gear. So what's his glove? It's going to be crit damage. So that is your standard glove for damage dealers. When you want to do damage, you put a crit damage glove on them. It doesn't matter if their damage is based on attack, or if their damage is based on HP, or if their damage is based on defense. If you want to do maximum damage, you put a crit damage glove on them. Now, what does it mean when you put a crit damage glove on them? It means the burden of crit rate falls on all the rest of your gear on the substats. Okay, so if you can't get close to 100% or at least up there in a reasonable level, use a crit rate glove. Okay, but if you think you have the substats for it, go with a crit damage glove and build up your crit rate from the substats of the rest of your gear. On to the chest piece. So here we have an attack percentage chest piece. So whatever the damage is based on for your damage dealer, if you want them to do damage and the damage is based on defense, then you're gonna go defense percentage chest. Now for Inithwe, all his attacks, the damage is based on the attack stat. So that's why I went with attack percentage chest. Same thing with HP. If you have Santa Claus and you want to deal damage with him, go with an HP percentage chest. So what about Inithwe's boot? So you see here I have him in a speed boot, and even with that speed boot, I know guys, his speed is like criminally slow, but think about how much slower he would be without that speed boot. So if you remember anything, in 99% of circumstances, speed boot is great. Okay, so you really can't go wrong with speed boots. All right, what about the accessories? So we'll start with the ring. So here you see I actually have him in an HP ring, and I have defense percent, HP percent, and attack percent. This is because Inithwe, like most attack-based damage dealers in this game, is kind of frail. He's a glass cannon. So if you want some survivability on your Inithwe, you're going to have to find some HP percentage or defense percentage substats in his gear and put it on him. Okay, so that's how you're gonna make him a little bit more survivable. But on his own, he is a glass cannon. On to the amulet. So here we have a crit damage amulet, so good choice for your damage dealers. And you see I have a little bit of attack in the substats. Lastly, the banner. So I have him in an attack banner. Now you guys might be thinking, well, he has a debuff though. Doesn't it mean when people have debuffs you want to apply that you put an accuracy banner on them? And I say yes, normally that is the case, but for Inithwe, I really don't use him for the leech. Honestly, I could really care less about the leech. I use him for his block revive on every single one of his skills and his damage. So that for me is the important part. If you really need him for the leech, yes, then put an accuracy banner on him. But I personally use him for his damage dealing, killing people, and blocking revive. On to Inithwe's total stats. So starting with 30,000 total health, we have 4,900 attack. So if your attack is in the 4,000s, that's pretty reasonable for most people. So this is going to be the Inithwe I'm going to show you. It should be quite attainable, these numbers, for most of you guys. I'm not running him with ridiculous gear. Yes, it is a Savage set, but if you want to do damage, you got to have a Savage set. That's just the way it is. But 4,900 attack, very reasonable and very attainable. Okay, remember my Inithwe is unbooked too. So the damage numbers that you see me do, you should be able to replicate, if not outdo me if you book him. On to Inithwe's defense. So you see we have 1,800. Total speed 168. Critical rate 92. For your damage dealers, you want this as close to 100 as possible. Crit damage, you see 230. For your big damage dealers, you need to get over 200% crit damage. And the most common way you do this is with a crit damage glove. So if you want those big crit numbers, you need to get over 200 critical damage. So once again, use a crit damage glove and get your crit rate from the substats of all your gear. Debuff resistance 231. Remember, accuracy is not really needed on Inithwe unless you really want that leech. So if you're going to go either resistance or accuracy, I would say go resistance, so he can resist those debuffs, especially those immobilizing debuffs that make him lose a turn. Okay, so if he can take his turn, then he can kill somebody and therefore block their revive. So it'd be a good idea to put some resistance on your Inithwe. And lastly, debuff accuracy. As I mentioned, if you really want that leech, go ahead and build him with accuracy, but there are a lot better people for me for leech if you really want that. Grush being a great example of leech on his A1 login champ. So you don't really use Inithwe for his leech, you use him for his damage. So I'd say don't focus on the accuracy because you're gonna have to lose out on attack if you do that. Just focus on attack with Inithwe. On to Inithwe's Masteries. So as I mentioned, I primarily use him in the arena, so this is my basic arena setup of Masteries for Inithwe. So we'll start with the offense tree. Firstly, Deadly Precision, crit rate plus 5%. Next, Keen Strike, crit damage plus 10%. Next, Shield Breaker, increases damage inflicted to targets under shield buffs by 25%. So I don't really need this mastery with the setup that I run, but it's to get to this mastery, which is why I picked it, which is Ruthless Ambush. This is a really good mastery for your nukers in the arena. So increases damage inflicted by 8% for the first hit on each enemy. Next, we have Opportunist. Increases damage inflicted to targets with stun, sleep, fear, true fear, or freeze debuffs by 12%. So in the arena, I run him with Kymar. So Kymar can put people to sleep. So you see this synergizes well with this mastery because if they're asleep, they get extra damage. Okay, so that's why I use Opportunist with my Inithwe. Next, Cycle of Violence. Has a 30% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random skill by 1 turn if the damage inflicted by a skill exceeds 30% of the target's max HP. Occurs once per turn. So this is really good for your big damage dealers to occasionally get that extra cooldown on their skills. Next, Kill Streak. Increases damage inflicted by 6% in the arena and 3% in all other locations for each enemy killed by this champion in battle. Stacks across each round in a battle up to 12%. So when I'm running Inithwe, he is going to be my main damage dealer. And I want him especially to get those killing blows. Why? Because people can't revive, right? So he's definitely going to be doing a lot of killing, and this is going to come into play, giving him that extra damage. Lastly, Helm Smasher has a 50% chance of ignoring 25% of the target's defense. For skills that ignore defense, this 25% is in addition to the amount ignored by the skill. So remember, the Savage set and the Cruel set already ignore damage. Plus on top of that, we are adding Helm Smasher. So if we're talking about PvP and you want to do the biggest damage numbers, you're going to go Helm Smasher. It doesn't matter if your character's damage is based on defense, HP, or attack. Once again, PvP. If you want the big damage numbers, go Helm Smasher. Now PvE is a different story, okay? But PvP, Helm Smasher is king of those big, juicy damage numbers. All right, on to the defense tree. Now I do think the defense tree is a better choice for Inithwe than the support tree, because really the support tree is about accuracy and buffs and debuffs and healing and shields. All of that is pretty much irrelevant to Inithwe. Just forget about that leech. Honestly, it's nothing. All right, so the defense tree is going to be better. You're going to give him a little bit more survivability, plus there are 2 awesome counterattack masteries, which we'll talk about. So let's start with the top. Firstly, Defiant, resistance plus 10. Remember, it is a good idea to put some resistance on your Inithwe so you can resist some of those immobilizing debuffs like freeze, fears, sleeps, things like that. Things that make him lose a turn, because he needs to take turns in order to kill people, right? So it's a good idea to put some resistance on your Inithwe. Next, improved parry decreases the damage received by this champion by 8% when this champion is hit with a critical hit. So in upper arena, every hit is a critical hit, because everybody's going to be doing what I'm telling you guys to do, which is build your characters with 100% crit rate. That's like one of the most basic things to do when you want to do more damage. And everybody does that in, gold, plat, every hit is a critical hit. So with improved parry, you basically have a permanent 8% damage decrease. Because like I said, everyone is hitting you with those crits. It's happening all the time. So minus 8% damage is great. Now in PvE, you actually don't get hit with crits super often. It's not like arena where like 9 out of 10 hits is going to be a crit. PvE, you don't get hit with crits too much, but definitely for PvP, this is a great mastery. Next, Resurgent has a 50% chance to remove 1 random debuff from this champion when they lose 25% of their max HP or more from a single enemy skill. So let's say Ray comes in there with their big AoE freeze / nuke, okay, deals a ton of damage to Inithwe, over 25% of his health, because he doesn't have that much health, right? Even with the gear. So with this skill Resurgent, he has a chance to just remove that buff and continue to freely take his turn. So the freeze will be removed, okay? And he can hit back. So this is definitely a good skill, especially for those characters with less HP, okay? So you're gonna find that your tankier characters, this is not gonna proc that often, because there's not gonna be that many people that are gonna hit them over 25% of their max HP. It's gonna happen sometimes, but not as often. But for Inithwe, yeah, it's gonna happen often because his base HP is so low and his base defense. So this is really good for him. Next, Stubbornness increases resist by 10 for each debuff on this champion, stacks up to 30. So once again, we're being wary of those debuffs and putting some resistance on our Inithwe. Next, Deterrence has a 20% chance to counterattack an enemy when they apply a stun, sleep, freeze, true fear, or freeze debuff on an ally. So this is a really, really good mastery. So if someone freezes somebody on your team, there's a 20% chance for Inithwe to just attack the freezer, okay? If someone fears somebody on your team, Inithwe will attack the person that feared your team. It has a 20% chance. So this is a super good mastery. You're gonna see it activate a lot. And Inithwe's A1 hits hard. Okay, so he has a chance of just outright killing that person and blocking their revive if they put one of those debuffs on your team. So awesome talent. Next, Retribution has a 50% chance to counterattack when this champion loses 25% of their max HP or more from a single enemy skill. So he will counterattack with his A1, and as I mentioned, it hits pretty hard. Okay, so let's say Ray comes in there with that big AoE freeze. We have our other mastery, right, that removes that debuff when he's hit for over 25% of his max health. And we have this because he's hit with for over 25% of his max health. Not only will he lose the freeze, he will counterattack. Okay, so these two counterattack masteries are probably some of the best in the defense tree, It sounds like they are more offensive, and they are, but this is why a lot of people go down the defense tree for these counterattack masteries. So guys, here is a team in the arena where Inithwe can help you out. Now notice here the double reviver. So whether we are talking about double reviver, triple reviver, or even single reviver, let's say that person's a really good single reviver. So someone like Duchess with a really good revive, this is where Inithwe can help you out. Yeah, sure, he doesn't do Trunda level damage, but so what? Let's say you attack somebody with Trunda and you don't kill everybody. And unfortunately that Duchess is still alive. What's she gonna do? Revive everybody. And now you gotta deal with everyone, okay? But what Inithwe can do is he can take out people permanently on all of his skills. So that is one of the things that really makes him unique. And remember, for arena defense teams, they don't actually have to beat me to win, right? You're gonna find some arena defense teams have like 3 revivers and some support person. There's literally no damage on that team. Well, how do they win? Because I can't kill them. And I don't wanna waste 30-45 minutes on a single fight that goes nowhere. So I quit and then they get the win. So this is once again one of the ways in which Inithwe can really help you out. So some of those really pesky teams that are hard to kill, Inithwe can help you take them out. So what is the strategy with Inithwe, and where do people go wrong? I think it's because they start off with his A3 skill. Now his A3 skill actually has the lowest damage multipliers of all his skills. Yes, it is AoE, but don't get greedy, okay? Because whoever you kill, they can't be revived. Don't get greedy. Start with Inithwe's A2. Hits super hard, they can't be revived, and really, do you really need to kill 3 or 4 people on the team at once? I mean, yeah, it's nice, but honestly, how many actual threats are there on the other team? Maybe 1 or 2? I mean, we're talking about damage dealers, maybe 1 or 2? Okay, so we are gonna take them out in a sort of like surgical fashion. All right, we're not trying to nuke the whole team. We're trying to take out who can harm us. And we're starting with Inithwe's A2. Hits super hard, okay? His A1 hits pretty hard too. Remember his A3, though it is AoE, has the lowest damage multipliers of all his skills. So I will use his A3 when I see multiple people are somewhat lowish on their health. But I will not open with the A3. That's where a lot of people, I think, make their mistake in using Inithwe, and that's why they're unimpressed with him. Yes, his damage multiplier for his A3 is the weakest of all his skills. Yes, it's weaker than Foley's A3, but don't start with it. If you don't start with it, you start with the stronger moves, you'll be fine, okay? And you really see Inithwe shine. Like I said, if you can take out that big damage dealer on the other team, then they got nothing. They can't revive that person. They got nothing. All right, so that is our target. So when we're talking about block revive champions, you go for the biggest damage dealer on the other team. That's where it's different from more traditional teams without a block revive character. So if you don't have a block revive champion, chances are your first target is going to be the other team's reviver, which is a good strategy. But remember, we got the block revive champion in Inithwe, so our strategy is completely different. We go for the biggest damage dealer. We neutralize them, and the team has no more threats. We're done. We can put it on auto. We're good, okay? As long as we get that big damage dealer. So on this team, really we're looking at Lua, killing her first. Like I said, we don't have to go after the revivers. We go after the threat because they cannot be revived if we kill them. Okay, so it's gonna be Lua. Lua, by the way, is an awesome epic, super hard-hitting AoE epic. But she is gonna be our target. Yeah, Longbeard has ally attack, but in and of himself, he's not the craziest damage dealer. We're looking at Lua and taking her out. And then it doesn't matter about the revivers. That team is done. So let's give it a try. Okay, so turn meter boost. My Inithwe is slower, so I do use my Kymar to sleep the other team to give him a chance to get his turn. So Kymar's A2, it also does remove buffs too, so it's super awesome. So we have my Madam here for defense down. Okay, so the nice thing about that is you're not technically hitting the enemy, so it doesn't wake anybody up. So that's the problem with the sleep debuff. If an enemy is hit or a poison procs, that will wake that person up. But Madam does not wake them up. She just puts that attack down and defense down on the other team. Once again, we are looking at Lua, okay? And I am not using Inithwe's A3 to start. I'm gonna use his A2, it's his strongest move, followed by his A1, and lastly, his A3. But look how slow he is. My Sifi has already gotten another turn. She has a nice sleep on her A1. So I'm gonna go ahead and use it. She's not gonna sleep anyone under 50% turn meter. So I'm gonna just kind of waste a turn with her. So if they're under 50% turn meter when she does her A1, she's gonna heal the team. My team doesn't really need it right now. So now we get to Inithwe. We're gonna use that A2 No Mercy, okay? And target damage dealer. So it's a triple hit, but you saw 30,000 damage, right? He didn't even need to do the other 2 hits. That's how strong this dude is, right? As I mentioned, reasonable attack stat, unbooked. This guy hits hard. Don't start with the A3. It is his weakest skill. Yeah, it's AoE, but if you don't kill people, you can't take advantage. Now look at the team. Who do they got? Nobody. All right, so basically now we can put this on auto, but I'm just gonna run through a few more times. We got Kymar for the reset, so we can go with Inithwe's A3 again and just reset everybody. Okay, the defense down is still there, but I don't want to wake anybody. Okay. Once again, my Sifi is just lapping people because she's fast. So you see right here, Gagorab, he actually is at full turn meter. He's gonna take his turn next. Now I can sleep him, but what else can he do? He can heal with his revival move as well, which he'll probably use on himself because his health is low. So I'm just gonna sleep him, but he can't revive anybody. Once again, the threat is gone. Inithwe just takes care of the threat, neutralizes the threat. So I'm gonna go and sleep him. So we have another threat here in Longbeard. Out of all the rest left, Gagorab, Syl, or Longbeard, Longbeard will hit the hardest. His A1 can do things like ignore shields, ignore block damage, but usually he's not the biggest damage dealer in and of himself, but still, Inithwe is gonna take him out. 19, 27, 1 hit left. We didn't even get to that last hit. Once again, this dude is unbooked. He would get 30% more damage on that skill if I booked him out. Now who's left? 2 revivers. What can they do? Nothing. Nothing. Okay? I get it. This isn't a speed run. Okay? This isn't like some speed farm thing. But think about this kind of team. I know some of you guys have been struggling with multiple reviver teams, or even a single reviver that's really strong. As I mentioned, Sifi, Duchess, whoever. Okay? He just makes it easy work. Yes, it's more of a manual run, but still, you get past these teams easily. So we can swipe here, but not like it really matters. No one is going to be revived, right? So Sifi will keep on throwing those sleeps up. Hopefully I can steal some buffs, put on some fears. So that sleep comes back. Now, as I mentioned, I do use Inithwe's A3 if somebody is low on health or if multiple people are low on health. So, for example, Golem is a little bit low, so I could use it on him right now. All right, so 40,000 damage on Golem, not bad. Okay, now who's left? Syl. No one can be revived. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, look at what we've done to this team. Now, granted, the player power was lower, but the strategy is the same. Okay, so you take out the biggest threats first when you have a block revive champ. Okay, and now the revivers can't do anything. Okay, there's no super hard, heavy hitting reviver. So once you get the other characters taken care of, then there's just nothing left. All right, so that was an example of how Inithwe can help you. Okay, so let's look for more teams. All right, guys, here I have another double revive team with Arbiter and Sifi. Okay, they have a Madam as well for that buff stripping and defense down. And their nuker Astralon, he hits super hard, A tier champ, super good champ. So who is the threat here? Astralon. Who are we going to go after with Inithwe? Astralon. Who cares about the revivers? Okay? With Inithwe, you go after the biggest threats. So that would be Astralon on this team. And Astralon actually revives too. So once again, we are going to go after that big target threat and just completely neutralize the whole team. Because who do they have if Astralon's gone? Nobody. What's Sifi gonna nuke you? Nobody. So that's it. Let's see how this works. Okay, turn meter boost, get some buffs up. So Kaimar is gonna sleep, hopefully sleep most of everybody. By the way, if you haven't seen Astralon like stunned or slept, he's like flying in air. I think it just looks hilarious. I know Sifi does that too, but for some reason it looks fun in Astralon. All right, so we got the defense down, attack down. Once again for Sifi, she is just so fast that she laps Inithwe. So I can basically pick anybody. Either of these two targets, both are revivers. Their health is below, their turn meter is below 50%, so I'm not going to be able to sleep them. I'm just going to get some healing right now that I don't really need. All right, so here we go. Once again, Inithwe's A2 is actually his strongest move. Don't go with the A3. Don't do it. I know you're tempted because it's an AoE, and Inithwe is not like a wannabe Foley. He is his own character. So if you use him and play to his strengths, he's a really good character. So what does Astralon got? Done. This team is done. It's done. There is nothing this team can do. Okay? They can just annoy you with buff strips and fears and sleeps and different things like this. But this team is done. There is no threat. Okay? So let's just keep going. Once again, nothing to be scared of. We see that little bit of shield on the Madam. So hopefully I can steal that and put up some fears. No? So I'm going first. I'm going to go ahead and sleep Sifi because she can sleep my guys. So she has this irresistible sleep on her A1. Super annoying, but I happen to be first. So Sifi versus Sifi. Alright. Okay. So we see that decreased defense and decreased attack. Luckily, look at my Inithwe. He resisted the decreased attack, and he's an attack champ. It would have affected him. Okay, so that's why I said make sure to build a little bit of resistance in your Inithwe. It will definitely help because he would do significantly less damage on this turn with that debuff. As it stands, he only has the decreased defense, so at least that will not affect his damage. So sleeping the other Sifi once again. Okay, here we go with the big damage. So a lot of the revivers, they can be pretty tough. I'm going to go ahead and go for that Arbiter and see if I can kill her. But Arbiters, Sifis, even Madams, they can be really tough depending on how you build them. So let's see. Almost. Unfortunately, I will have to wake them. And that is the issue with Kaimar. His A1 is AoE, so unfortunately, if you pair him with someone like Sifi, occasionally he will wake people up. So that is the issue. So we see a ton of debuffs from their Sifi, but I can strip that. Once again, I'm just going for the Sifi. So look at that counterattack mastery, like I said. Because the opposing team put up some fears on my team, you saw Inithwe come in there with that big A1, and that's over half the health of their Madam, right? And he just does that automatically. Unfortunately, a few of us are feared, but I'm going to go ahead and sleep the other team. That seems to be back on cooldown. So attack the person that's not sleeping so as not to waste that sleep. I will put the block debuffs up. Now, hopefully here I can get a kill in, but I do have the fear up. It's not a true fear, but I'm going to go ahead and try to kill her. Done. Look at that. So first with that counterattack, A1, big hit. Secondly, just from that normal A1. As I mentioned, every attack of Inithwe's is that block revive threat. So however long this takes, you're going to win. That is the thing, okay? You're gonna win, which is awesome with him. So once again, you don't have to fear these multiple reviver teams, okay? You just take out the biggest threat. You take out that nuke. It happened to be Astral and take him out. No threat. Once again, it might take a few turns. You take a little bit of time, but you will win, okay? You will win. Now you got a fear up on the Arbiter. So there's a chance for Madam's A1 to fear, so sometimes you get that. Can't sleep anybody yet. Okay, so once again, Inithwe. As I mentioned, I will use his A3 when someone is somewhat close-ish to death, because the damage multipliers aren't super high. But I could probably take out that Arbiter. Or not. As I mentioned, the damage multipliers aren't great. Even booked, you only get 10% more damage for the A3. That's why I say don't lead off with it. The A2 and then the A1. And if someone is somewhat close to death, if this was an attacker, a damage-based attacker, his A3 would have killed them. But because it's Arbiter and Sifi, which are pretty tanky, it's going to take a little bit more. Okay, sleep them again. Just kill Arbiter. Now, I could have done the block revive and waited, but I think I can sleep Sifi enough to hopefully not have her revive Arbiter. But even if she does, what's the big deal? Because Arbiter can't revive anybody else. That's the thing. Who cares? This battle is just going to take a little time. But I'm going to win, for sure, because of Inithwe. Big A2. Done. Okay? So, once again, it's not about the time. It's about knowing for certain that you can win. And yeah, if you take out that nuker with Inithwe, it's done. It is done. Okay? It doesn't even matter if they have 3 revivers. It's done. Okay? And every subsequent person that Inithwe kills, it just seals their fate all the more. Here we have a double revive team but they have Rotos. And as you guys know, Rotos' passive won't allow him to be one-shotted. So he can't take more than 50% of his health as damage for any one attack. Okay, so the maximum he can take for an attack is 50% of his health. The nice thing about Inithwe's A2, it's a multi-hit. We're taking down Rotos, guaranteed. All right, this is another benefit of Inithwe, that A2 is a multi-hitter, so you don't have to worry about Rotoses. We are taking him out for sure. So let's go. Now there are 2 damage threats on the team, but I would definitely say Rotos is much more of a threat than Skull Crown. It really depends on how you build out your Skull Crown. Some people do build out their Skull Crowns really ridiculous with a lot of damage, but chances are Rotos here is going to be the bigger threat. So same thing here, boosting turn meter, throw out some buffs, try to sleep them. Okay, so Rotos is slept, damage down. Defense down, that is. So just wasting the A1. Now once again, we're starting off with the A2. No mercy. No mercy to Rotos. Done. Done. Alright. So this is the strength, as I mentioned, of Inithwe. Done. Okay, so Duchess can't do nothing. Nothing. Still can't do nothing. The biggest damage dealer on the team is dead permanently. Alright? So let's keep it going. Okay. So our next target is going to be Skull Crown. Now she will proc that unkillable once she gets close to death, which is okay. That just means it's going to take us an extra round to kill her. Hopefully we can steal that unkillable buff with our Madam. So let's see what happens. So we're not going to kill her right now with Inithwe. Inithwe does not ignore unkillable, but as I mentioned, we're going to try to steal that away with our Madam. Big hits. So we're just there. We just slept Skull Crown. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, because Kymar has that AoE attack on his A1, sometimes you end up waking people up. That's just the way it is. Okay. So as I mentioned, we can try to steal some buffs. So Madam, she can not only remove buffs, but she can steal them. So her stealing buff is on her A2. So we see a few buffs there, increased speed and that unkillable. So hopefully we can steal one or both of them. If we can, then that will put up fears on the other team, which is good for us. There you go. You saw those fears go up. All right, so I really don't want the Duchess to veil everybody. Now I do have that AoE skill on Inithwe, and so of course that attacks through veil. It just attacks everybody. The damage is decreased because of that perfect veil, but still Skull Crown will get hit and she will die. But I'd rather just not have to deal with that, so I'm gonna go ahead and sleep the Duchess. So here I can sleep them, or I can just do the A1. I'm gonna opt to use the A1. Hopefully I actually don't kill Skull Crown, okay? Because I do want to use Inithwe to kill Skull Crown so she can't revive. Alright, unfortunately she can get revived. Once again, Inithwe's just there in the waiting. Once she comes back, Inithwe will kill her. Okay, just going with the A1. These guys are tanky champs. Chances are I'm not going to be able to just one-shot them. They have over half their health. So we're just going with the A1. Okay, you see that revive, but once again, at least it is not against, as I mentioned, Rotos, which would be the bigger threat. So I can remove the veil here and hopefully sleep them and remove some of those continuous heals. So I'm going to go and buff the team. So I can't attack one person. It's going to be one of the revivers because they're not going to be able to do much. There's no one else to revive. I'm not going to attack Skull Crown. I mean, I can't anyway. She has a veil, but I wouldn't if I could because she's the attacker. So go attacking still the Drakes. So here I have that AoE hit. Skull Crown's health is a little high. Hopefully I can get lucky and kill her. There you go. See? You got that AoE, keep it in the back pocket, just in case, all right? Skull Crown's down, it's done. I mean, it was done when Rhodos died, to be honest. But none of these guys have anybody left to revive. Except each other, which slowly, I will make sure they don't have that opportunity. So let's keep it going. Once again, Kamra waking people up. That's what he does. I can go remove some buffs. Hopefully waste Seal's turn. Okay. Coming with Inithwe. Once again, we got that A2 back. His best hitting skill. Done. Done. What's that Duchess gonna do? What is she gonna do? Nothing. I mean, come on. Alright, this team has got nothing. All I said is, as I mentioned, it's just a matter of time. That's all. All right, there you go. All right, guys, I finally found a triple reviver team. It actually took me a lot of gems and a lot of refreshes, but I'm sure you guys have seen these in the arena. They are so frustrating. So we got triple revivers here, plus we got Vergus. So this tanky defense, self-shielding champ. So this kind of team is not meant to kill you. This kind of team is meant for you to kill yourself, so to speak. For you to get so frustrated, you rage quit, and you get the loss. But as I mentioned, Inithwe can help you out in these circumstances, okay? So these revivers are no good against someone killed by Inithwe. So let's give this very frustrating team a shot. Okay, turn meter boost, strip and sleep. Good, we got the defense down. Wasting that A1. Okay. Going with that big hit. Now Vergus does have a lot of defense. We're gonna give it a shot to see if we can one-shot him with the A2. But he is a tough champ. So let's see. Done. I mean, I could have killed anybody. None of them are threats. But once again, one person down. This is just a matter of time, okay? Slowly, we're gonna take the next person down, the next person, and the next person, so you can actually win against these teams. Think about trying to fight this team without Inithwe, okay? Sure, you can bring in Foley, but if you don't kill him with that big AoE, which you probably won't, all these guys are kind of tanky, you're not gonna win. You're gonna back out, and you're gonna take that loss. Here, it's just a matter of time. We will win. Right? So go ahead and reset. Restrip. So you see Arbiter just ran up and attacked my Sifi because she has that counterattack mastery when someone gets that debuff on their team. So it's good mastery. So let's try to take out Arbiter. As I mentioned, it can be a little iffy. You can make Arbiter really tanky. So let's give that a shot. Come on. Would you ever have thought you could beat a team like this without Inithwe? Yeah, you can try to, try to nuke them. If you don't kill everybody, sorry. I mean, then you're not winning, okay? But look how we're doing this. As I mentioned, it's kind of like surgical precision. We're taking our time, but we are guaranteeing wins against normally unwinnable teams. Teams that will frustrate you and make you quit. Once again, Kamra waking everybody up. Hopefully we can steal and put up those fears. So they have a good amount of resistance on their Syl. And freeze Duchess so I don't get that that potential Veil, which I don't really want to have to deal with that perfect Veil. Just going to use the A1 here. And notice slowly we're chipping down their health. And eventually Inithwe is going to take over. So as I mentioned, this A1 is one of his stronger attacks. I will right now opt to use the A3 just to do double damage, so damage on both people. But his A1 is stronger. But I'll use that A3. Right. So I wasn't really expecting to one-shot those defense champs. So both Syl and Madam, they are defense champs. Oh, I mean Duchess. They are defense champs. So it's really hard to one-shot those guys. Like I said, we're chipping them down. Okay, Karmar's A3 is off cooldown, so I can go ahead and strip those buffs. Put him to sleep. Here, I will have to wake somebody up. I don't have any other choice. I'll go ahead and wake up Syl. Her healing works when it's time for her to take her turn no matter what, so I can't stop that healing. Even if, you know, I freeze her, sleep or whatever, she is still going to heal her whole team every time her turn comes up. So I can't stop that. But here, to stop her from taking that turn. So it looks like Duchess is pretty low. Coming in with that A1. Done. Done. Okay. One left. Yeah, you can pretty much put it on auto. There's just nothing to come back from. There's no one to revive. It's done. All right. So you see what you can do with Inithwe. Okay. Look at this team. Triple reviver, including Duchess. Okay. How are you going to beat this team without someone like Inithwe? Now you might say, oh, I'll just avoid these teams. Yeah, you can. But why avoid them when you don't have to? If you already got Inithwe, use him. Beat these teams down. Show them that this game is more complicated than they think. That they just can't put up a team of 3 or 4 revivers and expect to win all their arena defenses. All right, so once again, this is why this guy is fun. He makes teams that are normally unwinnable, winnable. Okay? Honestly, I would not try to fight this team with my nuke team. I do have a Trunda. She hits hard. Okay? I would not try to fight this team with that team. Because if one person lives, then I lose. Because I'm going to eventually back out being so frustrated from everyone reviving everybody else. But with Inithwe, you can make it happen. So can you use Inithwe on somewhere like the Ice Golem to block revive those ads? Yeah, you can. He's probably not your best choice because he's not super tanky. Somebody like Phoenix might be better, but Inithwe still works. Alright guys, there you go. Ice Golem 20 with Inithwe. Probably if you're using him for PvE, best to put on some sort of lifesteal set on him. War Master, I just threw him in with the arena gear that he had Savage. Not great for PvE, but very usable. So if you want to use him for PvE, you're probably going to have to put, as I mentioned, some sort of different gear on him, like lifesteal, and change up his masteries. Helm Smasher is not that great for PvE, and maybe you could put a little bit of accuracy for that leech, but what I've shown you, that is for PvP, and you guys have already seen what he can do for PvP. Alright guys, that is it for my Inithwe Bloodtwin video. I hope I have convinced you that he does not suck. Alright? That he can be useful and that it's worth it to take him out of the vault. He can solve some really interesting puzzles for you in the arena, so give him a shot. Alright, so if you haven't yet, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next video.